What up, YouTubers? Good afternoon. Tiny Stiver here. Still blazing hot in southern Arizona. I don't know where you are, but it's the middle of it's the middle of October, and it's still bloody hot here in Arizona. So one of my YouTubers posted the question about whether or not my husband was carnivore, and had talked about what a struggle it can be with family diets, kids, spouses, etc. And it can be, right? So people that come to carnivore, they come one of three ways. They come via, they're already participating in a family structure that is ancestral living intentionally, or they have come in contact, or a person has come in contact with coworker, family member, somebody, and that is ancestral living, that maybe has rectified a huge medical situation and they get interested. Or like myself, they come to carnivore because they're tired of being on the floor and they've tried everything else. Why not? So in answer to the question specifically, the answer is no. My husband is not straight carnivore. He's a type 2 diabetic who's on insulin, not keto, uninterested in biohacking, and I love him anyway. It was a rough ride to get to a place where I could just love him anyway. This book right here. That is what allowed me to set me free from the judgment and the condemnation and the shaming about how he chose to take care of himself, and just appreciate him for who he is. That and a confrontation with a really good friend of mine. So when it comes to spouses, now I also have the advantage that I'm postmenopause, so I don't have those drives anymore that for women or men, there comes a point in time where that whole sex drive situation diminishes, thank God, and it doesn't drive you quite so crazy. Of course, I wouldn't have been so crazy behind that if I knew how to take care of myself back there. So when it comes to family diets and children and spouses, my suggestion to anybody I interact with is be the example, right? Be the example. Be the living, breathing example, and come to it from a place of attraction rather than promotion. Okay, so I don't do that well. I mean, I do the example part well, but the promotion part, yeah. Thank you, Brain Core Training. I used to get stuck on negative rumination, which rumination, if you don't know what that means, it means just chewing the cud and mulling it over in your mind. And which rumination is not a bad thing. That's what made me an amazing project manager. My mind will just go to work on a problem, and it'll just work it until it'll come up with a solution. My normal project management mental hours are between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., which is really inconvenient when you're trying to nail your sleep hygiene. So I needed to get off of that, and Brain Core Training is really what set me free. Now, when my kids are when my grandchildren are here, they know there's no sugar in this house. Not for them. I teach them about their bodies. My oldest granddaughter has filmed a few of my YouTube videos way back there in the beginning. I have pretty strong boundaries where that's concerned. It's like, no, if you want to take your money and you want to go buy your food and you want to screw yourself up, that's fine. But I'm not going to participate in that. My job is to, one, be true to me, take care of me, and then my job is to teach you, and no, That doesn't mean I don't love you. I don't love you any less today than I did yesterday or the day before. I love you the same. But I'm not going to participate in that kind of destruction of your body and your brain. It's not going to do it. Because I have the information. I have the science. I know the science. I know better. And so that is a real driving force. Oop, I just hit my tripod. That's a real driving force for me, is to be the example, to be the maverick in the scenario. I am not perfect. I had a girlfriend walk in the house. I was actually at my daughter's house, and one of my girlfriends walked in the house, and she had a bag of these cheese puff things, and it's like, and I was starving, and I took 3 of them. I'm like, I gotta go. Hanging out with you will corrupt me. And see, that's the other thing too. You have to choose your environments, especially if you've ever been carb addicted, if you've ever been addicted to anything, and 88% of North America is in a metabolic crisis. Yeah, that's because they're carb addicted. Carb addiction is no less evil than alcohol addiction or drug addiction. It's just a matter of which song, the tune, the fat lady winds up singing, or which medical crisis. Whether you will land in the hospital with a drug overdose, if you will land in the hospital with acute chronic pancreatitis and a tumor on you still landed in the hospital over addiction. Let's catch a clue about that. So really, it's about ultimate responsibility. Now, I have done a lot of emotional, mental, spiritual work, because that's what biohackers do. We seek it all, right? Optimum on all those categories. I have a psychiatrist. I'm part of a group that actually is an ecosystem that mirrors, it's a group designed to recreate your outer life of what goes on here, so that you can learn better communication skills, kind of not like Toastmasters, but I actively seek change and self-evolution. So, number one, because, I've said this before, when people have a medical crisis, they'll go one of 2 ways. They'll go traditional route, or they'll go boom all the way the other way. And boom all the other way, for me, wound up with biohacking. My husband is one of those people who chose to stay the same and take the Western route. That's his path. That's what he's chosen. And that's not my path. It doesn't mean I love him any less. And in fact, that's one of the hardest things, is because I absolutely adore him, and I know the quality of life that he's cheating himself out on. Will he ever come around? I'm not sure. Will my kids ever come around? Don't know. Will my grandchildren ever come around? Don't know that either. But here's what I do know. This girl's here. She's getting it done. And we're hanging it out on YouTube. Because I don't journal. So they're gonna know. So that's my suggestion to anybody. Right? When I'm working with people on the back end, and they're struggling, it's like you're a mom. Tap into your motherly instincts of doing the right thing for your children. If you can't, leverage whatever you can leverage on your behalf. I took my disease of addiction and I leveraged that on my behalf. Take whatever. See, one of the things they talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous is character defects. Well, the good news is you can't have a character defect if you don't have any character at all. Right? There's the good news. So it's a matter of assessing yourself and just flipping that paradigm. And there's books. There's thousands of books on that very subject. Go to Tom Ballou on impact theory. That's all he does, is how to leverage on your behalf what might be perceived as a shortcoming. And I've just gotten really good at it. But I'm also 55 years old. I've also have an amazing story. Even to me, yes, it's my story, but it's like I have lived the spectrum of oxymoron on this planet for my whole life. So use me, use my story to apply to your own, see where you can relate. Post comment questions in the, but that's my suggestion with anybody coming to the carnivore diet and struggling with your household, whether it be children or a spouse, of, you know, creating some boundaries, creating and teaching your children about how miraculous their bodies are. And yeah, they're going to be annoyed with you. They're not going to care, probably. But if you ask my granddaughter what her circadian rhythm's all about and whether or not she should be on screen, she knows better. And she knows when she suffers. So, isn't that really what it's all about? Right? Becoming, self-evolving from the last generation and leaving something behind for the next generation and hopefully having an impact with where you're at now. I mean, not only does emotional, mental comfort come with the carnivore diet, your physical comfort comes with carnivore diet. Everything just like chills out. You stop saying every 3 seconds. You can put three words together and make a cohesive sentence. It was awful when I was vegetarian. I couldn't spit a decent paragraph out of my mouth hardly. Well, actually, go back there on my YouTube channel and have a look. It was painful. So, and above all, have a good time. I mean, get creative. There are channels out there. If you're a mom or dad, and there are channels out there, ancestral, how to raise kids. Teach them where their food comes from. Take them to a farm. Yeah, you want to get real and get them in touch with themselves and their spirit. You know, Dr. Paul Salandino right now is talking about our remembering of where we came from and how we're supposed to be functioning. We just need to remember how amazing we are. And remember, come to out of this fog that we've been living in since, you know, the turn of, you know, the last 70 years when, you know, Kellogg's, yeah, that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different video. I mean, we just need to remember how amazing we are. I wouldn't go back for anything right now. And I'm not to the portion in the book where it starts talking about fruits and non-toxic plants. Well, not that any of them are not toxic, but he's got a list of less toxic. And we'll be cross-referencing that list with my food list. And I know I can do avocados and berries. I do know that. And just from his podcast. Oh, and he's going to be on Joe Rogan. Oh, man, there is nobody bigger than Joe Rogan in this space, right? Podcast. Dr. Paul has done an amazing job of just lighting things up on fire. And the nice thing about social media is it's going everywhere. In fact, one of my YouTube viewers has been carnivore since 2013. It's like, oh God, man, did I miss the boat? In 2013, I shattered my neck on a suicide attempt. Man, why wasn't somebody, how did I not get here sooner? And I go through my temper tantrum time. That's usually what happens. I go through this time frame of when I find something out, I get mad. I get mad because I should have known it already. Somebody should have told me, and why didn't you tell me? I've actually condensed that down from 2-3 weeks to 2-3 hours. Thank you, Brain Core Training. So, guys, that's my thoughts on the diet, the family, and YouTube saved my life, can save yours too. Until next time, my friends, stay legendary.